Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's virtual Dirshu Shir. Sorry we're not there in person, but at least we can cover the Shir this way. So we are continuing our Shir in Dirshu B'Halacha. We're beginning today on Reish Chaf Amud Aleph. We're holding in Siman Shin Samach Gimel. We began discussing Siv Vav yesterday. So yesterday, the Mechaber said in Siv Vav, Sar Shalo Yehei Halechi Rachok Min HaKaisel Shloisha Tvachim, that the lechi cannot be removed away from the kaisel. Remember, we're talking about a mavoi that's closed on three sides. It's opened on its fourth side, and we're going to be misakin this mavoi with a lechi. We're putting up a lechi at the opening on the open side next to one of the side walls. That lechi cannot be removed from the wall 3 tfachim or more. And yesterday, the Mishnah Berurah said in Ois Katan Chav Beis, we had two possible reasons for this. One reason was, if you're going to remove the lechi away from the wall 3 tvachim, so as long as it's within 3 tvachim, you have sheer lavud. So the gap between the side wall and the lechi is considered closed. But once you come away more than the sheer lavud, that's not considered closed anymore. And now, asi avira dahai gisa, the airspace between the side wall and the lechi, that airspace will join with the avira dahai gisa, with the open airspace on the other side of the lechi, and it will be mevatel the lechi. So now it's as if the lechi is not there. That was one reason that the Mishnah Berurah gave. The other reason the Mishnah Berurah gave was, he said, Yesh Aimrim, there are those that say at the end of Ois Katan Chav Beis, the Bechol Gavni Tzarech Liyos Halechi B'Soy Shloisha Tvachim, that no matter what, it's a rule in lechi, that a lechi must be positioned within 3 tvachim of a side wall. It's a din in lechi. It has nothing to do with avira dahai gisa. It's a din in a lechi. A lechi has to be positioned within 3 tvachim of a side wall. And the Mishnah Berurah said, V'yesh lahachmir, we should be machmir, and we should say that the lechi always has to be within 3 tvachim. Now the Mishnah Berurah yesterday said that the nafkamina between these two reasons would be, what if we're dealing with a lechi which itself is bigger than 3 tvachim? Let's say the lechi is 3.5 tvachim wide. If the lechi is 3.5 tvachim wide, then you cannot say asi avira dahai gisa va'avira dahai gisa u'mevatale. The airspace on the two sides can't be mevatel the lechi, because on one side you have 3 tvachim of airspace, but then you have the lechi, which is 3.5 tvachim wide. We always say that you can only say asi avira dahai gisa v'avira dahai gisa mevatale if the open airspace on both sides is bigger than the closed space in the middle. That's not the case over here. So according to the Mandi Amar that says that the reason the lechi has to be within 3 is so that you cannot say asi avira dahai gisa v'avira dahai gisa mevatale, that's not a problem if the lechi itself is more than 3 tvachim. But according to the Mandi Amar that says that a lechi always has to be positioned within 3 tvachim of a side wall, because that's a din in a lechi, then it doesn't matter how big the lechi is. It's irrelevant. A lechi always has to be within 3 tvachim of a side wall. If it's not, it's not. Now, I went over this again because I want to continue now, and we have to know where we picked up from. So let's go into the Mishnah Berurah, Ois Katan Chav Gimel. The Mechaber had said, Sarach Shalo Yehei Halechi Rachok Min HaKaisel Shloisha Tvachim. The lechi cannot be distanced from the side wall 3 tvachim or more. Says the Chavetz Chaim in Ois Katan Chav Gimel, Halechi. How about if you're not being misakin the mavoi with a lechi? You're being misakin the mavoi with the tzuras ha-pesach. So you're putting up a lechi on one side, a lechi on the other side, and a kana al gabein, you're putting a string or something across the top. And now you're being misakin this mavoi with a real tzuras ha-pesach. Can that be removed from the side wall? So if you have the lechi on one side, the lechi on the other side, let's say you didn't put the lechi on one side all the way up against the side wall. You distanced it 4 tvachim away from the side wall, and then you made your tzuras ha-pesach. Is that okay? Says the Chafetz Chaim, Das harbe mea paiskim, it's the opinion of many paiskim, she'ein tzarech ledaktek, we do not have to take care, she'yehei b'soi shloisha tvachim la'kaisel, that the tzuras HaPesach has to be within 3 tvachim of the side wall. Why? The tzuras HaPesach mechitza gemurahi, because a tzuras HaPesach is not a lechi, a tzuras HaPesach makes a real mechitza. So who cares if it's more than 3 tvachim away from the side wall? Let's say the opening of the mavli over here was 10 amas wide. You went there, you made a tzuras HaPesach, you started all the way from one side, you made a kaneh, you put a string on top, you put another lechi on the other side, and on the other side, it's 4 tvachim away from the side wall. So what? You have a 6 amma mechitza over here. You have Oimid Meruba ala Paretz. So what's the problem? You have a real mechitza over here. Why does it have to be within 3 tvachim of the side wall? However, v'yesh paiskim, there are paiskim, the sfira who hold the ein chilik bein tzuras HaPesach lelechi le'inyan zeh, that there's actually no difference between a lechi and a tzuras HaPesach. In both cases, you have to be within 3 tvachim of the side wall. What would be the reason for this? So one explanation that I saw brought down is, according to the Mandi Omar that we had in Ois Kot Nechav Beis, that says that the problem when you pull a lechi more than 3 tvachim away from the side wall is Asi Avira Dahaigisa Va'avira Dahaigisa Umavatale, that could be a problem for a tzuras HaPesach as well. Why? Because what's a tzuras HaPesach? A tzuras HaPesach is a lechi, and then a string on top, and then another lechi on the other side. But if on one side of the opening of the mavli, the tzuras HaPesach is pulled 3 tvachim away from the side wall, so you're out of the sheer lavud, so this is considered open air space. So now the open air space on the side wall side of the lechi, and the open air space on the other side of the lechi, not on the other side of the tzuras HaPesach, on the other side of the first lechi of the tzuras HaPesach, we'll say Asi Avir Dahagisa, Vavir Dahagisa, Umevatale, and it will be Mevatal that lechi. So now you no longer have a tzuras HaPesach. You don't have a lechi mikan and a lechi mikan v'kan al gabein. You only have a lechi on one side and a kana al gabein. But the first lechi is batul umevatal, because Asi Avir Dahagisa, Vavir Dahagisa, Mevatale. So that's the daya that holds that the tzuras HaPesach also has to be within 3 tvachim of the side wall. The counter argument to that would be, how could you say Asi Avir Dagis Avir Dagis Mavatale to the lechi? The tzuras HaPesach makes a mechitza. So if it's a mechitza, we don't say Avira Dahagisa. There is no Avira Dahagisa. That's considered Pesach. So here you have the machlokes, and the Mishnah Berurah says, in a pressing situation, we could rely on the mokula de kashita that it could be pulled more than 3 tvachim away from the side wall. How about if you have a gap of 4 tvachim between the tzuras HaPesach and the wall? It's the opinion of the Chayodam that you would need another lechi between the side wall of the mavli and the first lechi of the tzuras HaPesach. Or Ladidi Tzarchian, the Mechaber says that to him, Tzarchian Gam Bazeh, this case would be a Tzarchian, Kamoisha Berarti Bibir Alacha, or Lechatchila Bavade Nachan Lahachish Lahachmir. However, the Chafetz Chaim does say Lechatchila, you should be Machmir, Afilu Barachik Shloisha Tvachim and Akaisel, even in the case where the tzuras HaPesach is removed 3 tvachim from the kaisel, lechatchila, you should be machmir that's a problem, and you should bring the tzuras HaPesach on both sides. It should be brought all the way next to the side walls. Okay, says the Mechaber in Siv Zayin. Lechi, the lechi that we're speaking about over here, to be misakin a mavli. So this is, again, we have the mavli surrounded on 3 sides. The 4th side is open. We're going to be misakin the mavli so that you should be allowed to carry inside the mavli more than dalar amas by putting up a lechi on one side. Remember the discrepancy that we said between a chotzer and a mavli. If you're dealing with a chotzer, you could be misakin it with a pas dalet on one side or a lechi on both sides. By a mavli, you could be misakin it with only a lechi of a kolshu, tiny little lechi on one side is enough to be misakin the mavli so that you should be allowed to carry. So here the Mechaber says, lechi, this lechi that you're using to be mesak in the mavoi, afilu shvarim v'shivrei shvarim kisherim boy. You could even make it up out of broken pieces. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Ois Cotton Chav Daled, lechi afilu shvarim ritzayna loymar. The Mechaber means by this, what does he mean by broken pieces? Midubakim. You have broken pieces of wood or something, and you stuck them, you glued them together somehow. That is sufficient to make a lechi. The point being that it really doesn't have to have any structural integrity, doesn't have to have any strength. As long as it could stand up to a common wind. If it could stand up to a normal wind, that is sufficient. This is in contrast to a kaira, to a beam. Another way that we're going to see that you can be masakin a mavoi is by putting a beam across the top of the opening of the mavoi. Now that beam does have to have a certain amount of structural integrity. That beam had to be inon. We need that beam. Dafka shetia chazaka kedei lekabel ariach. It has to be strong enough to take the weight of a brick called an ariach. Ukedel b'sif yud zayin, like we're going to see later on in Sif Yud Zayin. The Mechaber said that even if it's made out of broken pieces, kisherim bai, says the Mishnah Berurah, kisherim bai, for hu hadin avanim hayotzim min hakaisel. The same rule would apply. Let's say at the open end of the mavoi, there were bricks or stones protruding out from the side wall into the opening. This is very easy to imagine. If you imagine a wall, the side wall of the mavoi, let's say, is made out of cinder blocks. And you know when you build with bricks, right, when you're making a turn of a wall, so on every other row of the wall, you would have a brick sticking out. So you would have bricks sticking out from the side wall, making the 90-degree turn going into the open side of the mavoi. So the Chavetz Chaim says, in that case, for hu hadin avanim hayotzim min hakaisel, if you would have bricks or stones protruding from the side wall, turning into the open side of the mavoi, umuvdalim zu mizu pachas b'shloisha tvachim, in such a way that there's less than a 3 tefach gap between each one of those stones, so you're within the shear of lavud, and we'll consider those open spaces to be closed. Have a lechi mamish. That would be a perfectly good lechi. Of course, you would have to have a height of 10 tvachim in order for that to be good. Says the Ramah in Sif Cotton Zion in the last line, Hagah, v'lachein. Therefore, based on this rule, oisen lechi misid tachli b'kaisel. You could actually make a lechi by taking plaster and just smearing a line of plaster on the side wall. Since we're saying over here, since the Mechaber said that the lechi could even be made out of shvarim, it doesn't have to have structural integrity. It could be made out of broken pieces that are stuck together. So you could actually just take plaster and smear a line of plaster on the side wall. And that would be an effective lechi. However, you do have to take care, sheyizar, you should be very careful, shelo yismache, that it should not become rubbed out, yoiser mishalosh la'aretz, so that you have a gap of more than 3 tfachim from the ground to the beginning of this line of plaster. Since all it is a smear of plaster, if animals or people rub against it, it could become rubbed off. Now, if you have a gap from the ground going up of 3 tfachim where it's rubbed off, then your lechi is going to be ineffective, because we're going to say it's like gediyim boikim boy. Since the lechi is mitam mechitza, doesn't make an actual mechitza, but halachically it makes a mechitza. If you have a 3 tefach or greater gap from the ground to the beginning of that mechitza, it invalidates the mechitza. It would invalidate this lechi. Says the Mishnah Berurah, nice cut and chavav. V'lachein oisen lechi, since the lechi does not have to have structural integrity, you can make it out of a smear of plaster. That's no worse than making the lechi out of broken pieces, which we just said is okay for a lechi. The same din would apply when you're creating a tzuras HaPesach. where the tzuras HaPesach is made out of a lechi on one side and a lechi on the other side, and a kana al gabehen, those lechis could also be made out of a shmear of plaster. You don't have to have a 2x4. You don't have to have something that's strong. It could just be a line of plaster. Im yarei sheyapileim haruach. If you're afraid that if you're going to use regular lechis, if you're afraid that they're going to blow down, you could just make a smear of plaster on one side, a smear of plaster on the other side, and then v'hakana shelamala, and then the beam or the string that you're going to put on top from one smear of plaster to the other, will have to be aligned with the smear of plaster so that it's directly above them. As we saw earlier, that the string on top always has to be perfectly aligned with the side lechis. However, there is a caveat. When you make that smear of plaster, it does have to have substance. It has to be substantive, at least like a chut, at least like a string. It has to have some thickness to it. Avamare sid levad, but just let's say you make a line of paint. So all it is a visible line, but it has no substance to it, has no thickness. Or just a line of chalk, krayed is chalk, or other dye or paint, loy mahani, that would not be an effective mechitza. It has to have a mamoshus, it has to have a thickness to it. Otherwise it cannot be used as a lechi. That comes from the Taz V'Sharei Achronim. The Mechaber said that if you're going to make a lechi out of a shmear of plaster, you have to take great care that it should not become rubbed out. The Mishnah Berurah says, you have to take care that it should not become rubbed out at least 3 tvachim or more from the ground going up. This could happen from dogs or chazerim walking over there. They are in the habit of rubbing against walls. And they would rub out this shmear of plaster where it's close to the ground. Once it's rubbed out, it cannot be usable anymore, not as a lechi or as a tzuras HaPesach. The words of the Mechaber were that it should not become rubbed out more greater than 3 tvachim from the ground. Says the Chavetz Chaim, Hailishta lav dafka, this language is slightly imprecise. Da'afilu nimcha rak shalosh betzimtzum, even if it would become rubbed out exactly 3 tvachim, that would also be a problem. Gam kein bottle mimenu shem lechi, that also would take off the status of a lechi, because once you hit 3 tvachim, that's enough. Ukidlakabei besif yud. Okay. Continues the Mechaber on Reish Chaf Amud Beis. We're at Sif Ches. Lechi sha'asoi me'atzei ashera kosher. If you made a lechi out of the wood of an asherah tree is a tree of avodah zarah. That wood is aser bahana. It's also oimid l'sreifa. The halacha is that you have to take that wood and you have to burn it. Now, usually, when something is oimid l'sreifa, when something is waiting to be burnt, there is a concept of michtas ketusei shiurei. Since it's waiting to be burnt, we look at it as if halachically it is already burnt. Now, if it's burnt, so what is it? It's pieces of ash. So when something needs a specific measurement in order to be usable for a dvar halacha, let's say a lulav. Let's say a lulav has to be 4 tvachim. So a lulav from an asherah tree, we would say you can't use it. It's michtas kata shiurei. It's not 4 tvachim anymore. It's as if it's burnt up. So we're going to have to tackle that concept and also the concept of Isser Hana of the Atzei Asherah. So the Mechaber says over here that the lechi could be made out of Atzei Asherah, and we seem to have 2 strong reasons why it should not be able to be used. So let's see what the Mishnah Berurah says. Lechi sha'asai, a lechi that you made out of Atzei Asherah is kosher. Says the Chavetz Chaim. By Gemara Isa, in the Gemara it says, the Eisen Lechi Asherah, that you could make a lechi out of the wood of Asherah. Umashma afilu lechatchila. And the implication of the Gemara over there is that you could even do this lechatchila. It's perfectly acceptable. And the Chavetz Chaim says, "Ve'ein lahakshos." You cannot ask the following question: Nihi de balechi kevan de ein tsar shir loy shaykh bazek to say michta shiure. Even though you'll tell me that a lechi, since it doesn't require a minimum shir, there is no problem of k'tusei mechta shiure. Why should there be a problem of k'tusei mechta shiure? There's no minimum measurement to a lechi, and we'll get, I know what some of you are thinking, we'll get to it. So don't ask that, okay, I understand why k'tusei mechta shiure is not a problem. K'tusei mechta shiure is not a problem because there is no minimum share for an Erev. So I don't have to worry about that. Ukidl kamei, which the Mishnah Berurah is going to explain why this is true in the next Mishnah Berurah. But the Mishnah Berurah right now says, Bikam Makam, still, l'chayr is another problem with using the wood of an Asherah tree. Ha'asar b'hana. How could you make a lechi out of the wood of an Asherah tree? You're deriving pleasure, you're deriving benefit from this wood, and the halacha is that the wood of an Asherah tree is asar b'hana. Says the Mishnah Berurah, that's also not a problem. Yesh laimar, we could say, kev on the halechi einay elo l'tzarech mechitza. What does a lechi do? We alluded to this yesterday. This the machlokes of the Gemara in Eruvin. Is a lechi mishum heker or is a lechi mishum mechitza? And we come out that a lechi is mishum mechitza. So what does a lechi do? A lechi creates a halachadika wall. It makes a mechitza. That is the purpose of a lechi. Now, this lechi that you put up, is it making a mechitza that you derive any pleasure from? Is there a wall here, really? Could you see a wall? Does it provide you with any level of privacy? Does it provide you with any level of security? Not. It does not. So as a mechitza, it does not give you the hana of a mechitza. In the words of the Mishnah Berurah, Kevin the halechi einay elo l'tzarech mechitza. Since the point of a lechi is to create a mechitza, uba gufa loy mishtamish b'midi, and as a mechitza, this Asherah wood is not providing you with any benefit whatsoever, because you do not use it as a mechitza in any way, shape, or form. Loy choshev hana, that does not constitute a hana, mashenena al yoda heter tilto. The pleasure, the hana that you're deriving from this Asherah tree is not the hana of a mechitza. You're not using it as a mechitza. You're using it as a halachic technicality. Since mitam halacha, it is a technical mechitza, so now you get from that a heter tiltal. Now you're allowed to carry inside the mavui, you're allowed to carry more than dalat amos, because halachically we look at it as if there's a mechitza. But again, really the lechi is a mechitza. You're not deriving the benefit of a mechitza. So you're not deriving the benefit that it really is, so to speak, made for. That's not the benefit that you're getting. So we don't consider that you're deriving pleasure from the Asherah tree. Ultimately, are you getting a benefit from the fact that there is a lechi there? Yes, but that's not mechitza benefit. And since really the lechi is made as a mechitza, that's not called deriving hana. It's as if you have like a peripheral hana that you're getting from this Asherah tree. Since, now that you put the lechi there, it makes a halachically recognized mechitza. And since you have a halachically recognized mechitza, now you have a heter tiltal, that is such a peripheral hana that the Mishnah Berurah says that is not called deriving hana from an Asherah tree, and you have no problem of iser hana over here. Says the Mishnah Berurah weiter. I should mention that the Dirshu brings down in footnote 28 another reason why you have no problem of Isser Hana. Let me get to the right page over here. And that is 28. Tam Noisev, footnote 28. Tam Noisev Kasvu Ha'elia Rabba V'Apri Begadim V'Anisiv Chayim Mishum Shemitzvah Islav Lehonis Nitnu. Another reason why there's no problem here of Isser Hana is that the Hana that you're getting over here is a halachic Hana. And we have a rule that mitzvah slav lehanis nitnu, and since mitzvah slav lehanis nitnu, this doesn't constitute a Hana. But the Mishnah Berurah didn't bring that. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah weiter in Eis Katan Lamed. So we just said that there were two potential problems with using the Atzei Asherah to make the lechi. One was that there's an Isser Hana, and that the Mishnah Berurah took care of. The other problem is Ketuse Michta Shiure. Why don't we say that you don't have even the minimal measurement of a lechi? So now, in the previous Mishnah Berurah, the Mishnah Berurah just said that that's not a problem. Now he's going to explain why it's not a problem. Says the Mishnah Berurah kosher, Hatam, the reason why the lechi made out of the Asherah wood is okay, Misham Dekev and the lechi ain't tzarich shear, since a lechi does not have a minimum shear, the bekol shehu sagi, because we said that even a lechi of a masha who is okay, ukidaleil b'sif gimel, like we said in sif gimel, afilu meyatze asherah mahani, so you could even make it up out of the wood of an asherah tree. Afal gav datze asherah oimid l'sreifa, even though the wood of an asherah tree is waiting to be burned, and usually we say that when something is oimid l'sreifa ukeman desarif dami, it's as if it's already burnt, umichtas katas shiure, so it's as if it's ground up, it's chopped up. That's what the word michtas katos means. And michtas katos shiure, you don't have the minimum measurement because the minimum measurement is chopped up over here, so you don't have it. Mikam makam halay ba'yishir. But the Mishnah Berurah says over here by the lechi, it's not a problem because you do not need a minimum shear. Even though now the Mishnah Berurah says the problem that many of you are thinking, even though, what do you mean you don't need a shear? You do need a shear. You need a minimum height of 10 tvachim. So how are you telling me you don't need a shear? Explains the Mishnah Berurah. Since we have said that in the thickness of the lechi, it could be even mamish mashahu, we said it could even be a shmear of plaster, so there's really hardly any substance there. When we're talking about such a minimum shear, when it comes to such a minimum shear, over there the Chachamim were not machmer, and they did not say Ktuse mechta shiure. We're talking about something that Kamat doesn't have to have any substance. So we're going to say a michtas Ktuse shiure and you don't have a shear? No, you have a shear. And now the Mishnah Berurah says even a better explanation. They also say, and he brings, who does this bring it down from? Maybe a Pri Megadim. They also give an explanation. The balechi, that when it comes to a lechi, let's say we're going to say, Kala oimid l'sreifa kesarif dami. So we'll take a look at this as if it's already burnt. Okay, so it's burnt, and what is it? It's a pile of ashes. Even if the taka was burnt up and it already is ash, so okay, you know what you could do? You could take that ash, you could mix it with water, you could make a paste out of it, and you could smear that paste on the wall, and it'll be at least as good as your smear of plaster. So even if the wood was taka burnt up into ash, and now you mixed up that ash and you made a paste out of it, and now you smeared it onto the wall, it would also be a good lechi. So what's the problem of saying Tusei mechta shiure? We'll say it's oimid l'sreifa and it's kesarif dami, it's taka waiting to be burnt, and it's as if it is burnt, and so what? You could still make a perfectly good lechi out of it. As long as it will be something that cannot be blown away by the wind, and therefore, since you theoretically could go ahead and make a lechi out of this, even if it would be already burnt, so there is no reason to disqualify the Asherah wood based on the concept of kala oimid l'sreifa kisreifa dami. Okay, now we're coming to a piece here in the Mechaber and in the Mishnah Berurah where we're going to need some audio-visual aids. So I'm going to call upon my able videographer over here to help me out. Don't take it out of the tripod just yet. I'll let you know when to take it out. Now, the video camera is going to be removed from the tripod, so you're not going to be able to see me. It's going to be focused on my toys that I have over here next to me that you cannot see yet, which I'm going to use as a visual aid to explain the cases that the Mishnah Berurah is going to discuss. This brings me back to my days of saying Daf Yomi on Yavamas, where I explained all of my Yavamas cases using Playmobil Menchies. So toys have a very good place in the world. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah, when we're talking about this lechi, bein shenires blitas halechi la'imdim b'soich hamavui, whether the extension of the lechi is visible to the people inside the mavui. So from the perspective of the people standing inside the mavui, you could notice that there's a lechi here. However, ve'eino nires la'imdim b'chutz, but from the perspective of the people standing outside the mavui, they cannot recognize that there is a lechi here. Or bein shenires la'imdim b'chutz, or whether the lechi is recognizable from the perspective of the people standing outside the lechi, neged chalal hamavui, by the airspace of the mavui, ve'eina nires l'imdim bifnim, but it is not visible from the perspective of the people that are standing inside the mavui, kosher. In all of those cases, the lechi is an effective lechi. So again, just to recapture the words of the Mechaber, there are going to be cases where you can recognize the mavui, the lechi. The lechi is noticeable from the perspective of the people inside, but not from the perspective of the people outside. And then there are cases where the lechi is noticeable and recognizable from the perspective of the people outside the mavui, but not from the perspective of the people inside the mavui. Says the Mechaber, either way, the lechi is going to be kosher and is going to be effective. And now I'm going to have the camera taken off of the tripod and brought over here to my combination of Lego and Magnetiles so that you can see what's going on here. You didn't fully unlock it, right? Fully unlock it. No, you don't do that. Just turn that back, please. Right. Okay, and now you just bring the camera over here. And we're going to focus on our toys. So, we have the mavui over here. You can see the mavui. So here we have a mavui. Here we have our three walls of the mavui and our open side of the mavui. This, my friends, is a lechi. And we're going to see where I'm going to position the lechi. This is also going to be a lechi, and I'm going to be positioning that lechi in different places as well. Right now we're going to begin with this lechi. So, the first case that the Mechaber spoke about was a case where the lechi is noticeable for the people standing inside the mavui, from the perspective of the people in here, but it is not noticeable from the perspective of the people outside. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Eis Katan Lamed Aleph, Ve'eina niras la'imdim b'chutz, the lechi is not recognizable from the perspective of the people standing outside. What is the case? Says the Mishnah Berurah, Kigain, shehamid halechi, you took your lechi and you erected your lechi, rachvai, so that its width, this is the width, rachvai, litzad orkoi shel mavui, the width of the lechi runs alongside the length of the mavui. V'loi moshach kitzei rachvai, you did not draw the width of the lechi out, kima, even a tiny bit, klape chutz, to the outside. So if you notice here, the lechi is completely flush with the thickness of the wall of the mavui. It's completely flush. The lechi was not drawn out. It was not drawn forward so that it extends beyond the wall of the mavui. Elehishva, instead, elehishva chudai achitzain. What you did was you made the chudai achitzain, the outer edge. This is the edge that faces the outside. You made the outer edge of the lechi flush lu'uve kaisel hamavui, to the thickness of the wall of the mavui. Now, by doing that, look what happens. A person who's standing on the outside looks over here and he sees this face. And this face is completely flush. So he doesn't recognize that there's any lechi here. To him, this is just the thickness of the wall. Here you have your total thickness of the wall. But I don't see a lechi. Now, had this been drawn forward like this, now if you turn the camera to the side, now you could see a corner formed in here. and that corner would show the people on the outside that there is a lechi here. But that's not what was done. Instead, it was done like this, so that it is completely flush, and it just looks like a thick wall. So in this case, this lechi is not recognizable from the perspective of the people out here. Now, if you bring the camera around here to the back, the lechi is recognizable from the perspective of the people inside the mavli. Because from inside the mavli, you see this extension. You see the inner face of the lechi is recognizable to the people from the inside. So, in the words of the Mishnah Berurah, I'll just continue the Mishnah Berurah. V'doime kimisha moisef al oivei hakaisel v'einay nira mibachutz kalechi. To the people on the outside, it just looks like a thick wall, so you don't see a lechi. Aval chudai apnimi, but like I showed you before, from the inside, you see the inside face. Nira la'imnim sham bifnim. From the perspective of the people inside, they could see a lechi. And the Mishnah Berurah says, kazeh. And I believe those of you who are using the Dirshu Mishnah Berurah have a picture on the bottom of the page that shows this in a diagram. That was the first case. Now the second case of the Mishnah Berurah was the opposite, where it is visible from the people outside, but not from the people inside. I'm going to take out my other lechi, and I'm going to explain this based on what seems to be the consensus of the Achrayim. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Neged Chalal Hamavli. What's the case over here? Kegain, Shenosan Kol Halechi Lechutz Hamavli. The entire lechi, here's my lechi, is on the outside of the mavli. It's not inside the mavli. This would be inside the mavli. It's not inside the mavli. It's outside the mavli. V'chudai hapnimi, and its inside edge, that's the inside edge of the lechi. Where is it placed? V'chudai hapnimi, oimid eitzel oivei hakaisel, is running alongside the thickness of the wall of the mavli. Avaloi ha'emidai b'shaveh, it was not positioned flush, l'sfas oivei hakaisel, with the thickness of the wall, shal tzad toich hamavli, of the inside. So, it wasn't placed over here, where now this wall is flush. It wasn't placed like that. It was placed instead like this, flush with the outside of the thickness of the wall. In the words of the Mishnah Berurah, it wasn't lined up flush with the inner face of the wall of the mavli. If it was done this way, flush with the inside, it would not look like a lechi. It would just look like an extension of the inner wall, even from the perspective of the people that are outside. So the way I would explain this is like this. Let's say a person is standing over here. This person, if he looks into the mavli, what does he see? He sees that the inside face of this lechi is totally flush with the inside wall of the mavli. So even the person who's standing outside does not recognize this as a lechi. But if I position the lechi over here, so that now it's flush with the outside of the mavli, now to the person who's standing over here, he can see that there's a lechi here because there's a corner over here. So, again, in the Mishnah Berurah, I'm just going to begin the words of the Mishnah Berurah from the beginning again. I just cut Lamed Beis. The entire lechi is on the outside of the mavli. The inner face of it is aligned with the thickness of the wall. But it wasn't put flush with the inside of the wall of the mavli. Dim came because if it was, had it been like this, it would just be seen as a continuation of the wall, so even a person outside would not recognize it as a lechi. Ella instead, they distanced it from the inner face of the wall of the mavli. And they made it flush with the outer wall of the mavli. So now a person standing over here recognizes that it's a lechi because of this inside corner over here. So this person recognizes it as a lechi, kazeh, like this case. And that's the picture that I have in my Mishnah Berurah as well. However, in Ice Cut Lam and Gimel, the Mishnah Berurah says, but in this case, the person standing inside the mavli does not see a lechi. Ritzayna loymar, loisan oimnim toicha mavi ein halechi nires, shein asuya bifnim. The person standing inside the mavli does not see this lechi at all. He doesn't even know that it's here. He doesn't see it. It's only visible from outside. You can't see the lechi from over here. You don't see it at all. It's back here where you can't see it. So to the person inside, you can't see it. To the person outside, you can see it. And a nice cut in Lamed. No, that is it. So that finishes Seif Tes. Thank you very much to my videographer over here. We're going to break over here. And Amir Hashem, we will continue tomorrow, also on video, and we will pick up from Seif Yud. Everyone should have an easy tinus. Enjoy tonight. Enjoy the Megillah. Have a Freilich and Purim. And I will let you know when tomorrow's share is posted as well. Thank you for bearing with me for doing a virtual share.